I was never taught explicitly about the suffragettes. I remember seeing them in Mary Poppins, and I think probably asking you about what the women in this movie were, and they were sort of shown as zany and like
idiots.
I
might have started a rant in
Right.
the middle of Mary Poppins.
So yeah, not necessarily the best exposure to the movement.
The women voting bloc is back in the spotlight as the United States navigates an unprecedented election season and honors the 100-year anniversary of the 19th Amendment. I'm Lindsay McGinnis, a reporter with the Christian Science Monitor. I sat down with 3 generations of women to find out why they cast their ballot. Corinne Adler, Jennifer Borman, and Isabella Bowker have always been politically active, but they don't agree on everything. Here's a look into one family's relationship with suffrage. I'm curious if you guys could imagine for me what you think your life would look like if you didn't have the right to vote.
I can't peel off the right to vote from the right to do other things. It all feels very bundled to me. So political participation and participation in the economy and some freedom from sex role stereotypes.
Roe versus Wade never would have happened. Like, there wouldn't be legal birth control. Like, a lot of these things happen because women are a legitimate voting bloc that politicians have to contend with, whether they like it or not.
Now more than ever, I am aware of how important the women's vote is. So women have a tremendous influence these days on the election, and they're being, I think, really looked at differently than they were before. That's my perception, that they weren't as important before as they have been in the last election cycle.
If I didn't have the right to vote, I would be a much angrier person. I grew up very ambivalent about being a girl, and it was in part because I just wanted to do everything the boys could do, and they'd always say things like, we can't hit you, you're a girl. And I was like, well, I could hit you. What are you gonna do about it? And just constantly hearing all the things I couldn't do, and it made me very angry, and it made me resentful. And it wasn't until I was, in high school and later where I actually sort of embraced my womanhood and am very happy to be a woman. And I think that's because I have a great deal of privilege and freedom now. And I think if I did not have those things, I would be deeply, deeply resentful.
Big question, kind of the biggest one that we'll probably tackle tonight, and that's, why is voting important?
Okay. Why is voting important?
Well, the world is unfair and resources are always contested. And if you don't make your voice heard, you will continue to get the shaft. That's my take.
So what distinguishes a democracy from a totalitarian government is voting and the right for people to choose. And if you take that away, you disenfranchise everyone. So it's vital to be able to vote. It's really critical. And it defines us as a country, I think, is our freedom to vote.
Yeah, I think right now what we're seeing in this country when it comes to the public health crisis is a pull between collective action and individual wants and desires. And I believe very strongly in voting as a duty to the collective. And voting is important because we all need to sort of look out for each other. And if you opt out and say, well, this election doesn't really bother me. It's issues that don't affect me. It's someone else's problem. Then what you're doing is choosing your own selfishness, basically, over the good of society. So I think it's important to not do that.
I'm curious, because you come from such a politically engaged family, when you encounter people who are more politically ambivalent, how do you deal with that? Do you give unsolicited advice? How do you explain to them why you think it's important to
Well,
speak
what
up?
happens, I remember, is trying to say something, and I heard a little elbow in my rib saying, "Cool it, Mom."
Every time I vote, the person I want to win never does.
No,
so
I
maybe
know.
if more people voted, I wouldn't feel that way.
I do feel like political engagement is an exercise in heartache.
Yeah.
I mean, I am not a fan of this, yay, women candidates, like vote for women just because they're women. I just don't feel like women have any corner on virtue. I would love to
Especially
see
politicians.
more women run for office. I'd love to see a much more diverse electorate in every single way, but I never feel compelled to vote for somebody because of their gender. I just feel like we're as good at being dishonest and corrupt or ineffectual as men.
Yeah, I disagree in a way. I think if there are two equal candidates, I would certainly vote for the woman. I think we're one of the few countries in the world, developed countries, who's never had a woman leader. And I really do think there's a lot of prejudice against women. A lot of men won't vote for them. And I think the women have to stand up and really support women. And if the person isn't quite as great as you might like, the fact that I think it's important to have a woman as president.